talk about relating content to each other. Talk about one-to-one versus one-to-many relationships. This can really help to keep content clean, make it easier for your team to expand without chaos. It's as simple as I might have like a category field, and I could, say there's a category field that I need. Obviously, we probably don't want someone typing in a category name on every piece of content, right? We want to have another list that's the categories. That list can grow as it needs to, but it will always have the set list of categories that we can choose from. That goes for tags, it goes for segments, all of the personalization stuff, which I think I can see we're going to be getting into a webinar with that pretty soon, John. That this is where it's really important to have content that relates to each other, so that we can have meaning and have it, be a well-known set of values that are relating that content together, and it doesn't get into this kind of chaotic, random higgledy-piggledy. Did you type the name of the category correctly? Did you use uppercase? Yeah. Things like that. This is a blueprint for personalization. This if you are good at relating your content to each other by categorizing it, tagging it, and allowing us to expand on that into the future, because you might not know all the segments that you care about, but that may grow with your business. As you segment your content based on new attributes that your audience cares about most, then you can serve them more relevant content. It just makes it really easy to do that. Hey, we have this basically this bank of content that's segmented, and it's got all the attributes on it that are well known because they're built on good tagging properties. Now, when folks want to use that, it doesn't matter what personalization system is being used. If we're able to filter that content based on the attributes that people care about, that's how we can serve the best content to them.
One of the biggest issues I see with personalization, even just categorization, where people are building their content model that's not very flexible, is they'll build something like even just a persona field or a product category field, and they'll have a drop down, and maybe there's 5 personas, right? So it'll be like, maybe for our school it'll be student, teacher, professor, whatever these different things are. And in the drop down, they'll add some content and say, this is content for a student, right? Or this is content for a professor. That's awesome. That's great. Okay, it's personalizing. It's allocating this to that persona. But then down the road, they're like, well, wait a second. Actually, I want to start launching content for both a professor and a student or whatnot. But their system is hard coded to have a drop down where they can only pick one. So if that's locking into that one-to-one relationship versus a one-to-many. And if they were to just built it where you could pick multiple, like kind of like this is in the screenshot here, you see segments, you have Europe, North America, if this was student, teacher, all the other kind of types, maybe sponsors or donations or whatever, then you can pick publish content and relate it to multiple personas or multiple things. So I would say most of the time you want to think about a one-to-many relationship and minimize the one-to-one so that you're coding against the ability to expand that. Even if today you only systematically apply it one-to-one manually as a user.
Right. It's certainly something to have a discussion about when you're talking about how you categorize and tag your content and relate it to each other, for sure. And it's not just segmentation. We can create very sophisticated content models. It's not unlike, I hate to say it, but not unlike creating a database or designing a database schema when you're looking at how we can relate content to each other. And so I definitely think that drawing this out first, using some kind of like flowchart format or even just a whiteboard, makes it a lot easier to sort of do this. And I always recommend start with a simple model that you can kind of hold in your head, and then expand it slowly. You might start with a simple list and add more relationships to that list over time. And then but that means that what that list is gives you a good idea in your head of what that means. And then adding more relationships to that can just basically bring more metadata to that list to make it more valuable.
Yeah, I would say adding relationships to content models is actually fairly straightforward in terms of expanding your solution, and then your devs team can take advantage of that. The tougher part is changing relationships. So if you relate this to one piece of content and now you want to change it related to a different piece of content, or you want to change that from a one-to-one to a one-to-many, those are tougher because the development side of things, wherever you're pulling this content, is assuming possibly a one-to-one or some certain type of other related content that's coming back. And that's almost like deleting a field or renaming a field if you change the relationships and things like that. So adding, again, is much easier than changing or deleting relationships, or changing that one to one to many.